told me on the beach that his face and his hands and his legs, which had started to bow even worse than they were full of scars, but his heart was not. I asked him, why not? He said, because I beat Whiskey Jack. So he must have seen the confusion on my face. And he said, he laughed, and he said, you white men, you think Trickster just is a mischief maker. You think he's some kind of Indian clown. You don't realize that when you think that, you actually give Whiskey Jack more power. It's one of his greatest tricks. And then he said, but his best trick of all, is to make you think you are not who you are. Make you think you're not who you are. Sometimes he makes you feel smaller than you are. This he does with shame. He likes to do this to women. Shame is very powerful for women. Sometimes he makes you think that you are bigger than you are. This he does with pride. He likes to do this with men. Pride is very powerful with men, particularly young men who are very easy to fool. Sometimes he makes you think you are right. No matter what you do that is bad, you are right. This is what he did to me. Each time I hurt someone in my life, Whiskey Jack would say, you are right. White man, after all, stole your heritage. I knew deep in my heart that these lies were poison, but still I let Whiskey Jack, I let him fool me. I let him fool me. So I asked, then how did you beat him? And he lifted up his hand with just 3 fingers on it, and he said, 3 questions that dissolve the power of Whiskey Jack's lies. The first question is, who are you? Who am I? What is the clay that I am made of? Now, being a good liberal white guy, I immediately assumed that what he meant was that he was trying to recover his heritage. And when I told him that, he laughed the loudest laugh of all the time we spent together. He said, no! That is exactly what Whiskey Jack would like me to do. There was a deep and wide river between who I wished I were and who I actually was. And my endless search for a vanished family would only feed my bitterness. And my bitterness is what Whiskey Jack ate. He said, you know, Whiskey Jack is wise, he's smart. He makes you think this question, who am I, is an invitation to say, not who am I, but who do I want to be? In doing this, he leads you on a false path. So what you must do is you must be more serious. You must say, who am I really? Who am I really? As though you were in a storm, a snowstorm, were blinded by the snow. You have to be able to see through it in order to save yourself. You have to be able to see through the falseness. You must ask, who am I really? And in that moment, you have some freedom. You've broken Whiskey Jack just for a moment. He'll come back. He'll try to come back. But you now have the strength to ask the second question. And the second question is one that really confuses Whiskey Jack. It is, what am I for? What am I for? It confuses Whiskey Jack because he doesn't understand purpose. He has no idea of purpose. And when you find the answer to that question, what am I for? It is like you cut off his tongue from his mouth, Whiskey Jack. I asked him, had he found his purpose? And he said, only after I stopped being a righteous warrior. I was not righteous. I was a thief. I was an addict. I was an unfaithful husband. I was a terrible father. I was a false friend. And even Whiskey Jack taught me to be a very fine liar. And in those truths, I found something so simple that I almost rejected it. What I am for is healing. What I am for is healing. The third question, I call it the walking question, he said. I was able to stand, but like a baby, I was unable to walk. The walking question is the question that gives power to the other two questions. But you can't answer it before you've answered the other two questions because you won't hear it. You won't hear the answers. We ask ourselves this question every day of our lives, but we do not hear it because we are not ready. But when we are ready, the answers come. Like walking on a snow-covered field, you know the earth is underneath the snow, but you know it's also dangerous to walk because you can't see it. When the answers come, it is as though the snow is melted and you can see where to put your feet. That question is, what will I do? What will I do? And with that question, you can begin to move forward because there are many answers to that question, and they're all linked to one another, one after the other, after the other, after the other, doing proper actions, right actions. And as you do these actions, you see that Whiskey Jack becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. But he never disappears. And you don't want him to. You want to know where he is all the time. That is how I beat Whiskey Jack. And that is how I still beat Whiskey Jack. It was getting late on the beach. Cold dampness was settling on the beach. Both of us had places to be, to go. Whiskey Jack, or rather, Normande, gave me a big, broad smile. And I noticed for the first time, I hadn't seen it before, that his teeth were gleaming white, and not one of them was missing. So I began to start to doubt his story. He smiled even broader, and he said, "You like them?" Yeah. He says, "You can thank British Columbia Insurance for that. White man's government knows how to grow teeth." Imagine that. At that point, he turned and faced me and put his arms on my shoulders and pulled us close so that we could touch forehead to forehead, nose to nose. And he said, "I was taught this by a Maori man. It is called hungi. Hungi means to breathe together. The Inuit do it too, breathing together. Shall we breathe together, friend?" And we did. We shared breath together. And as we did, we could feel the warm air between us. A few moments later, we broke apart and we turned each in our own direction. I never saw Normande again, but I thought about him a lot. I think about him a lot. And I'm guessing that Whiskey Jack does too.